I'm back, and I'm going to be expanding upon shit talking, smack talking, and how the power of words can really be viewed this way. When you consciously become involved with observing how you speak about people and things and shift it toward a more positive, higher vibration, which would be do no harm to anyone, including yourself. Don't talk bad about yourself, your friends. Don't talk bad about things. You can have opinions, but remember that even opinions, it matters how you convey them. So one thing that I want to say is that when you talk shit about somebody, and it seems like, at least in my life, it's funny because I might have done this. I have done this before, and that somebody who I talked meanly about behind their back, the next day, the next week, maybe in a few hours, they did something nice for me, kind, and I felt like a piece of shit. I hate that guilty feeling. And as often, if that occurs in your life, if that's a reoccurring thing, which it has been in mine, it's a kind of a wake-up call to show you, it's like, hey, wake up. Was it worth it to talk like that about that person? No, it's not. It never is. Even when you feel like you're just getting things off your chest, there's better ways to do it. I have become somewhat good at resisting talking negatively about other people behind their back, but it's an ongoing process for me because I personally I'm a communicator, and I need to say my feelings. I need to communicate, and I overthink things a lot. So I always get way more involved in the little dramas than I should, because it matters. It affects me, and I don't like to feel. I like to resolve conflict, because I still do have a fear of conflict, and that's something I'll touch down in a little bit later, but that's something that it's kind of a, I don't know if this is the proper word, I don't know if handicap's a great word to use, but it's kind of a handicap. It hinders your performance as a consciousness that is capable of expanding and rising. It hinders that. But I have a really good friend who really helped me see the point on this, but I was even involved with this before he and I started talking, but I don't get involved. I consider the whole political partisan deal to be one big pooping on one another parade, verbally, and I just think it's the biggest shit-talking convention in the world when people from opposing political parties or just opposing mindsets really get over-involved with each other and just end up I have to say that I have to say this. This might be a little shit talking, but I'm not proud of some of the ways that the political systems in my country operate. I'm not proud of the speech and debate performances of the political candidates. I'm actually very ashamed of how they behave to each other. It's just bashing, and it makes me feel icky. It makes me feel very sad inside, and I have a lot of sensitivity toward toward underdog type types of people. And even though, say, it's two political opponents bashing on each other and maybe there isn't an underdog, I still feel like that watching people fight makes me feel like I'm the underdog. Like I'm afraid. Like my parents didn't fight when I was growing up and in front of us or raise their voices. That was a real gift, as I've come to find and learn. And but I do realize that when people are fighting, it affects people around them. And when people are talking harshly to each other, it causes other people around them to become angry and maybe take sides and become more angry. And it's this groupthink thing. So I personally, I do believe in, in doing the right thing and taking a stand, especially if there is an underdog, to seek justice, to help somebody who might need help. But to get involved in all this political shit talk, like, I have to tell you, I don't vote. Like, I don't vote for the, I haven't voted in a long time. I just think the system's pretty corrupt. And one of the reasons I plainly see that with my little child's eye is that I get uncomfortable with the way that the politicians and our leaders treat each other. It doesn't make me feel like, it makes me feel like I'm in a really dysfunctional family, and I'm a kid having to witness it. And so perhaps I'm retreating, but in one way, it's my political stance to represent my that I don't agree with that. All right. So another reason not to talk shit. One thing, a lot of this is just going to come from my experience, is because it is a quotation. Don't knock it till you try it. And that's really true. You never know. I mean, some people stay the same in many ways all their life, but most people do not. And you never know, not only if you'll change your mind about how you feel about something, whether it be politics or a vegetable, or, a band or a hair color or, one of your values, like a core value, you could change your mind. And so if you are talking a lot of nasty, negative stuff about something, and the next day, so let's find an example. Well, if we just gonna make it simple, if you go visit somebody and they wanted to offer you this beautiful dish that they had made for you, and it had tomatoes in it, which I don't like tomatoes, but I've actually learned to change my mind about that. And you said to them, no, I don't like tomatoes. This person worked really hard and it was for you and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no. I hate tomatoes. I think they're disgusting. I don't know why anybody likes them. I honestly like vomit. And this is a weak example. And so you don't try it and everybody else tries it and they're all having a great time. And you, I don't know, maybe after everybody's gone to bed, you go just taste because everybody seemed to be so obsessed with it. And you taste this tomato casserole thing and you think it's delicious. Well, the rest of the vacation, you have to either tell them that you snuck off and ate some of that food and that you changed your mind, or you have to fake that you still hold that stance to save your face and miss out on any leftovers that they're going to take on the hike the next day, blah, 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 blah. So you see how staying stagnant, it can be perpetuated by taking a stance, a negative stance against someone or something. All right. Another point is this is a really wonderful thing that I can't remember where I heard it, but somebody gave me this advice. It was, you show people how to treat you by the way that you act and treat other people. So the way that you're being treated by other people is most often, not always, there's always that, that wonderful prophet, revelator who gets banished out of the kingdom. But, and there's also people who speak up for, things and get largely, shunned, and that's not cool. But you show people how to treat you, and so how people treat you is a reflection of who you are and how you treat other people. So the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is not, I don't believe in doing that all the time. I don't. And I've said that in a different video. I think that the words are tricky on that one. But what I think that you could do is show people how you want to be treated by the way that you not only treat them, because you need to be able to be adaptable to people's to the subtle energies. Like if you're talking with somebody and you notice that they're not really as comfortable as comfortable with being social as you are, and you're kind of overwhelming them with your talk and such. And if you're so into yourself that you're just like, and you are fabulous and everybody thinks you're fabulous, and who cares what anybody else thinks? Everybody thinks I'm fabulous. You might miss out on that. Some people it's not that they maybe don't like you unless you continue to just ignore the subtle energies of them. It's that you overwhelm them, and you will miss out on picking up on that subtle energy of them maybe retreating and not, responding well to you, and therefore maybe going on in their own perhaps unconscious way to maybe talk negatively about your inability to let them talk, or your inability to connect with them because you're so into your own thing. These are just archetypal examples. But so the way that you showed that person to treat you from now on is to perhaps avoid you because they don't want to be in that situation with you anymore, and you might miss out on something really beautiful. In general, that's my rule is, if I put somebody, there's some people and I refuse to use this word, so I'm going to spell it out because I hate when people use this word. Toxic. I do not believe that anybody is toxic. I believe that everybody is. So I hate it when people use that. That's one of those words that really, really gets overused when it comes to the shit talking thing. So I'm not going to use it ever again. Now you know what I mean. But you might have showed people by your negligence how to treat you, or if you're too shy, you show people that maybe either you'll seem aloof or just too difficult to connect with, and then it gives people their own unconscious reasons for talking bad about you, which is not your business. It's not your business what people think about you or care, or what they say about you. It's not. What your business is how you act. And you cannot please everybody. That is true. But you can always improve on yourself. So that kind of leads me into this. If you're on your way and your path to becoming more authentic and wanting to rein in those good vibes by putting out good vibes, but not too overwhelming, be sensitive to people, be quiet when you need to, blah, 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 blah. One thing that you got to avoid is self-righteousness, because all truths are but only half-truths. That's another quote. And I didn't actually look up what that really meant because I feel like it's self-explanatory, especially with the subject matter that I have been covering in the last, ever since I started doing videos. But there's dark and there's light. And one is not better than the other in their ways. In fact, you know, the extreme heat and extreme cold are pretty much exactly just the same. They're vibrating almost, they have very, very subtle differences. They're pretty much the same thing. When you're very, very, very cold, you feel hot, you know? And I don't know about the opposite, but if you're really, really hot, if you feel cold. But I'm sure there's some funky side effects that I hope never to have to experience. But all truths are only half-truths. There's always another side to each story. The more that you can allow and accept that people will continue to be people and not always be agreeable, and that's okay with you, and you're okay with how they feel about you, and you're okay with confrontation, and you're okay with if they are spreading rumors or whatever, because you can back it up with truth, and you don't need to unless somebody approached and asked, because you're just gonna live your badass self. There's always gonna be shit. There's always gonna be shit. Especially, I feel like the more conscious you become, because people do have that underlying subconscious feeling of envy or jealousy, and they will subconsciously take it out on you without even really knowing it by talking shit. And I've done that. And so you can't really blame them. As Jesus on the cross said, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. We really don't in a lot of ways. And we're trying. But if you're looking for the truth, you're really just going to find that there's always, there's a lot of duality. And to transcend duality takes quite a great deal of not only effort, but sometimes lifetimes, you know, or if, you know, it's very difficult. So being able to balance the duality is difficult, but, yeah, you have to accept that people will be fearful. And in fact, you at one point were fearful as well. And so you can relate to it. And if nothing else, you can be a good example to them by showing them unconditional love, despite knowing that they do talk shit about you. All right. This one's going to run a little bit over time, but it's good. It's good material. So another point, you beckon what you fear. What you fear or what you attract is going to be similar to the vibration that you're running on, and also the frequency. If you're really talking shit and you're really being nasty about somebody, what goes around comes around. And in fact, I've said in other videos, really effective tool in manifesting and beckoning things is emotion. And thoughts, it starts in thoughts, but you know, even your thoughts, either sex or fear or love, are more powerful than actually than the physical, because you can think about something and imagine something and suddenly become very fearful when nothing has even happened. So if you are thinking very not nice thoughts and you are following through with those not nice thoughts with lots of shit talk, that's gonna come back at you at the same rate and vibration, the rate and the frequency. That is alchemy at its finest, because alchemy and the powers that be, it doesn't seem to choose between good and bad. That's why all truths are half truths, you know. It will grant wishes despite how evil, that's a word, just a word, or good, that's another word, you or I think that thing is. It will attach onto the frequency and the rate of that vibration. That's what is key. So if you're a big old shit talker out there, well, you're probably already living that life, and you're maybe in it right now. And if you are, I know it's hard. Like, you have to be so much more defensive when you are engaging in warfare, psychological, verbal, whatever. Warfare. You have to always be on the defense, and that's exhausting. So, white t-shirt, white flag, surrender. Surrender is actually the perfect word for what is the solution to, if it's become a really bad habit. You need to surrender to allowing yourself to shift into something different, allowing yourself to let certain people who you've surrounded yourself with and love maybe, and still are allowed to love. But if you find yourself that you've surrounded yourself with people who do a lot of shit talking, you will most likely be a shit talker too. And oftentimes you might be a reluctant shit talker because you want to hang out with your beautiful, wonderful, absolutely hilarious, but totally rude, negative shit talking friends, it's going to have to come down to, at least it has for me in ways in my life, different parts of my life, to shift. And if that means, if you don't want to lose your friends, then you need to go into your bear cave for a while and figure out how to be strong enough to stand up for the person that you want to be to your friends who are still engaging in the habits that you do not want to engage in, but do not want to lose your friends. Now, that is a really big one for me because a lot of people talk about, addictions and coming off of addictions and stuff and not being able to be friends with their friends anymore. And I am not going to say anything to people who need that. I think that if that's what you need that, that. But for me, I've always been really wanting to not let someone else, an outside circumstance determine my behavior. I want to be in control, and I want to keep my friends. So I've at times had to go inside my bear cave and gather my bearings and strength and practice some good self-talk to myself and get myself strong enough, get myself out of the shit talking so that I could become strong enough so that when I go back and hang out with my friends, that I can just be silent. And if they're asking me, which they don't, but if like, why are you being weird? Just, I'll be in the right groove because I did the self work to be able to keep my friends or to keep the alcohol that I wanted or keep whatever it is and not participate in the destructive behavior. And that's how I do it, but it's really difficult. All right. Another very, very key point is assertive behavior. Now, this is something that I did not get taught when I was a child up until I kind of flipped over in my mid-20s to aggressive because I was so sick of being passive, which I was in many ways. And passivity is a dreary spot to be in because you are not in control of your life. And aggression is a dreary spot to be in because you think you're in control, but you are not in control of your life. So being assertive is walking more of the middle ground where you, one, respond to other people and think of more than just yourself. And 2, you vocalize what it is that you need, taking into consideration all feelings. And the 3rd thing, you also be quiet or back down when you have discerned that it has become a situation where aggression could easily be triggered. This is a really, really difficult thing to do. People, asking for help, that's something I've had to do a lot in the past, recent past, and it's something I was not really okay with. And I would often go, really screw things up in my life by not asking because I was too afraid to ask. Now that's coming from fear. That was not coming from a love and confidence in myself. That was coming from, I'm not good enough. I can't possibly, I'll be so embarrassed if I'm rejected. Well, that still is coming from, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of this help, and most likely they're going to reject me. This is just crazy fear talk. And I still default into that because I have interesting numerology, so I have a lot of intense duality in me, and my astrology, I have like extreme duality, always fighting. So I still deal with this all the time, trying to be assertive, and I'm in awe. I have a friend, a roommate once, who, all she was an example to me of how to ask for what you want and get it. And she was pure assertion, pure, and it made me so, for a long time, I didn't understand what my issue was with her, but I think that after time, I observed that I couldn't stand that she could do that, and I couldn't, because she would ask me for something and I was too scared to say no, I'm not comfortable with that. So I still was in passivity, and so I let her borrow something that I did not want her to borrow, and she got what she wanted, and it was a great example, and she still is. Shout out, girl, you know who you are. And I dealt with a lot of resentment, which started and ended only in myself, because I felt powerless, and I put my powerlessness onto somebody else and victimized myself that way. So yeah, shit talking starts places like that. Be assertive. Try your hardest. If you it's one of those things. Being assertive is probably, for me at least, about as hard as it has been for me to really consciously stop talking shit. So if it's that hard for you guys, as if I feel like it is for me, you ought to just, start YouTubing tips and tricks on how to be confident, how to love yourself, how to be assertive, how to ask for what you want, because you'll be more in control of your life, and you will be much more of a functional alchemist if you become assertive than if you don't. All right. You have to remember that you have to be involved. You have to take proactive action to prevent misunderstandings from spiraling into people talking shit about you. And that will cause you to resent, being talked about like that. But it can be prevented. Like, for example, my work, there was certain things I could have gotten away with. I knew that I could have gotten away with had I not spoken up. But in looking toward the future and preserving my reputation, I opted for honesty and to be assertive enough to tell the truth about what happened, even though I could get away with it. And it probably, most likely, saved me a lot of issues in the future, because that kind of stuff happened for me all the time. So be proactive about, about how you treat people and how you treat circumstances where people could take advantage of that weakness in you and go on to talk about you in a way that would make you angry. And if you're not, Zen 1 yet, then you probably will get angry and try and take it back on them. And an eye for an eye, something about blind, I think. All right. So become okay with confrontation. Being proactive also means that if, and this is the most effective way, this is also the scariest way. The most effective way to prevent yourself from creating negative spells through your words that will come back and eat you alive, or on the opposite, to help prevent other people from casting their negative spells toward your direction, is to be assertive enough to confront people and nip it in the bud by taking proactive action on things that you know will cause conflicts or problems or bigger headaches down the line. You need to go and talk to the people that you've had issues with or that have constantly been talking. I'm telling myself this too as I talk to you. I'm just thinking, yeah, you need to go talk to those people that you have resentments with or bad beef. And you know what? I'll tell you what, it feels really goddamn good. It's worth the scariness. I really, I lucked out with this transitional period after I had my second kid and was going through my second split up divorce thing, and I just bounced into this crazy job where it was just insane, and I had people screaming in my face, and I was brand new, and I will always thank this job, which only lasted me 4 months, and I was out of there. But I was remember and thank the lesson I learned in this job, which was to let it roll off the duck's back and absorb people's. You can take it. You go ahead and take that confrontation and don't budge. I mean, don't budge, but don't let it move your waters, as in your emotions. Don't try very hard to understand and empathize, but also not to become attached and either overly aggressive or overly emotional about the situation that you're being pulled in. And I will tell you what, in 4 months, I learned Spanish, and I learned how to almost pretty much be a bunch of people's psychiatrist. It was a beautiful experience, and it showed me that I just needed to be what I would have wished somebody was for me if I was in their position of anger and need, and I can't really say what the job was, but yeah, and I would want somebody to be compassionate, because I have a temper. And it's not a physical temper, but it's very verbally abusive. It's not funny. I'm working on that. All right. Okay. So yeah, if you are proactive, you can actually shut down something that could grow into something nasty big in the future. So do that shit. So, and you know, if you're not proactive and you let somebody, you know, get the better of you because you're too passive, you're gonna be that boiling teapot that is just quietly shaking until it's just like till it boils over. You don't want to do that. You want to, you know, be in control of the little, you know, the dial on the oven, or the range. The range. Who calls that the range? Tell your truth. It'll set you free. Tell the truth. That It's very true. I've learned a lot from allowing and being compassionate, in addition to and at the same time of being very transparent and being honest, and also being honestly asking for what I need and stuff like that. But there is a but to this tell your truth, and it will set you free. It will, but don't assume that you are living truth. Going back to every truth is only but a half truth. So don't assume that the truth that you're living, honesty is good, but do not assume that one day you might change your mind, your values. Do not assume that your truth is the truth, because if you think of things like that, then you're going to treat people like you have the truth and maybe that they don't. And is that how you want to be treated? Think about things like that. Truth is a very interesting word. Words are very interesting. Truth is something I'll have to go into later on in a different video. But don't make assumptions there. Just be honest. And then you won't have to remember much of anything. Become a good judge of your own character. Recognize your weaknesses and be sensitive to others, and judge yourself out. Judge yourself out before other people do. And you can really prevent some nasty gossiping. Ugh, gossip. So, in conclusion, I have two things. I'll try and keep this under 40. Thanks for staying here listening to me with my awesome, I don't even know what to call this. I'm going to get a little personal because this is my awesome 10-year-old or 12-year-old wig. And I finally decided I probably needed, I've washed it, but condition it. And I did this treatment, and it just whoever's hair it was, it kinked up, and I love it. It makes me feel a little bit more sister or rasta, or I don't think anybody else likes it, but I do. It's like a big red beard. I like it very much. Go ahead, you can talk about me. I don't mind. I love my wig. So this one, I'm not hesitating because I want to talk about this. But this is controversial. This is really controversial. And I'm contemplating whether or not I want to give you the example that my dear, dear, dear friend once upon a time gave me over and over and over, because he's one of those people that forgets that he's told you a story 17 times until you get impatient. All right. Eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So there are greater crimes, judgment. I was talking about being a judge of your own character. But you must remember that the only judge that you can be is a judge of yourself. You can't be somebody else's judge. Jesus said, and props up to JC, if y'all got a problem with that, I can totally understand. But even if Jesus was a mushroom or something, I don't care. The story inspires me. He's my mythological avatar, amazing being. I grew up super, super Christian, so I know the stories inside out, even though I'm absolutely have no affiliation with religion or Christianity or Buddhism or any of those isms and jisms and, well, some jisms. My man JC, he says, well, they all wanted to, fuck up this chick for, and it was probably, she was a prostitute, and it was probably all the dudes that were banging her and finally found out that, one of them, two of them who really didn't like each other, both found out they were banging her, and they were pissed, and they thought they would take it out on her, and they just wanted to kill her, it's just crazy. But, witches, props to my Welsh witches back in the day, my ancestors. So Jesus, is drawing in the sand, and he says, oh, and they said, Jesus, what should we do? She's committed a horrible crime, we're going to stone her. She should be stoned to death. It's the law or whatever. What do you think, Jesus? And Jesus just calmly is like, well, this is what I think. I think y'all without sin should cast the first stone. And I love that. I really do. And this is where it gets confrontational, because there's some crimes that people against humanity and horrible things that happen. And they have always happened. And they will always happen. And if somebody did anything to one of my daughters, I might lose all of my intentions that I've ever made about being a better person in general, and become a Mel Gibson, revenge style, painted, horrible assassin with just a one-track mind and a final destination. I probably would. That's off the record. I didn't really say that, but yeah, I would. People have done really horrible things, and it's really difficult to judge, though, because if you think about it and you were in the same position, you just gotta have compassion. People will always do heinous things, and what I think is I can't say it's more of a travesty. It's such a travesty in addition to the travesties that we lock people up in prison or kill them and judge them out so hard, and some of them are innocent. Nobody's seen the Green Mile. For Christ's sake, and people just assume and do this and that, and our political, let alone legal system, is really fucked up. And so I really urge people to, I said back in 42 minutes ago that, I don't like to participate in all the political bashing. In fact, I like to remove myself from the whole scene. Well, I think it's pretty corrupt there, and I think it's pretty fucking corrupt in the legal system, in the system where they choose who gets to go to these privatized prisons and spend the rest of their life based upon this and that. Shout out to Silk Road guy who got 2 prison sentences for his dark or deep web site, and he's my age. I can't believe that. That's so fucked up. Anyhow, so let him without sin cast the first stone. Anything, my good friend, I will tell you this story of his. My good friend, very wise, wonderful human being. He would always say, it just came to a realization that I had to forgive everybody, and continue to forgive everybody, and continue to forgive myself, because I'm going to keep fucking up, and everybody fucks up. And he's like, honestly, everybody that I meet, they've most people that I meet, he said, they either have, either I've done as bad of things as them, or I'm capable of it. And I thought that was beautiful little philosophy of how to encounter people who you don't really like, just think that it's so possible that you might be put in a position where you could flip out and become the bad guy like you never thought you would be, or any kind of scenario. There's multiple parallel realities, in my opinion. And the story he told was, this is a little brutal, so you might want to turn it off now. But it's about a man who took about, I don't know, let's say it was over a dozen teenage girls and had, like very brutally, well, I don't know how brutal, but probably, I mean, it's brutal enough that he killed them like serial killer style, but he also raped them and tortured them and stuff. I mean, just the nastiest shit. The worst thing that you could think could ever happen to any female that you love in your life, young female. And so he's at his court hearing, and there's just a huge amount of families there, and it's just thick with very, very, very intensely felt by everybody emotions. And the judge, they sentenced him to 700 lifetimes in jail and whatnot. And so the judge said, well, I feel like these crimes were heinous enough that I'm going to allow all the families to come up and say whatever they want to say to you. And so one by one they came up and just they cut, sewed, unsewed, then resewed him a new asshole with their words, which, how could you blame them? I mean, I think of my daughters, and I already told you all that. And this creepy serial killer guy stood there, poker face, and did not, there was no sign of anything. He had people just, any normal person would have buckled under what some of the families were trying to convey to him. At least, wake up. You took my precious little baby away from me in the most horrible way. He just sat there and was like, whatever. And they're like, you fucking piece of shit. I hope you die. I hope Satan rapes you with his gigantic dinosaur cock full of nails, stuff like that. And he just kept his poker face until one dad came up, and the dad looked into this criminal, horrible person, horribly selfish person's eyes, and he said, I forgive you. And that man, this is a real thing, that man broke down in tears. That was the straw that broke his serial killer back, was that somebody in just immediately could give him forgiveness. I don't think that he imagined it was possible. And the reason why I like this story, why I tell it, is because I can feel what the criminal guy probably felt. And this is very similar to how we all feel when we're under attack. Our defenses really sometimes can super hold us up, and we can just become mean and meaner, and an eye for an eye makes the other person just as blind, But when when somebody comes up to you in all their vulnerability with the chance to be like that and isn't, it's so powerful. This is where you can see, I mean, there's light and dark and this and that, and they're, half-truths, whatnot and so forth, but this is where you can really see the power of unconditional love. It is the most powerful tool that we can utilize, and within unconditional love, shit talk doesn't exist. It's not possible because there's no conditions on how you would love someone. So they could be that horrible to you. And if you get to the point where you recognize that you could let that tear your whole spirit apart. You could be that Mel Gibson, fucking revenge style, but you choose not to feel that, and you choose to do the harder thing in the moment and the thing that liberates you in the long run, which is to forgive. And to forgive actually frees you from the pain. It really does. It's the most incredible tool, forgiveness is. And so when people talk shit about you, forgive them. All right, I'm going to end this a little over 50, but I have one more quote for you. This is Damon Marley. Shout out to the Marley Bros. And this is actually coming from a song called There For You, or There For You. Goes like this. Vexation of spirit is a waste of time. Negative thinking, don't you waste your thoughts. Verbal conflict is a waste of word. Physical conflict is a waste of flesh. People will always be who they want to be. And that's what really makes the world go round. Unconditional love is scarce. On our journeys toward becoming master alchemists of the light kind, of the unconditional loving kind, we have to realize that these things take time, just like any kind of muscle. You have to build it. It's not easy, but it's so fucking worth it. And I'm gonna try, so you should try. Thanks for staying tuned. Much love, everybody.